Alrighty, so this video, figured I have nothing else better to do at lunch other than scroll through social media. The sentiment that I see with bread and circuses, with the idea of the masses being subdued by it, I disagree. Look at Africa, look at places where people don't have families. Why did the men rebel? And why did other men who did have families in Africa, in places that they had no real reason to because of it? When you have a family, when you have something to lose, it's harder to say, I want to rebel. There was this animator I was talking to online. Sure, it was online I was talking to them, but the point still remains the same. The person said this, that they didn't care about the abuse that Disney does to its animators. Quite literally said this. Doesn't care about the abuse that they did to the animators. They only want to get the job to help their family. They were willing to put up with the abuse, with the long crunch hours, everything, knowing everything that I told them about Disney and calling me a perpetual online, and realizing he cares more about his family than he does of his own health, of his own being. When you have men who don't have those kind of families, who don't have anything to support, to give up anything for, those are the times where you cannot subdue a man. It's not just the bread and circuses. What time do you see women rebel? Think about it. When do you see women start to implement feminism? Is it times during the Unga de Bunga era where men are being violent? Or is it during the times where men are a lot more docile, subdued, a lot more civilized for the culture, as it were? The times where women rebel is during times of comfort. Where men rebel is during times of having no family. So it stands to reason that no, it's not because of the Roman Colosseum or football. Look at the times where people were protesting taxes in the past. It was times during being unable to support their family, being unable to support even themselves, and having a hard time getting by. But look at times now. Food's cheaper, the cost of living, sure it sucks, but again, it's still cheap compared to everything else. I do believe if things do get bad enough, the masses won't be subdued, not because of food and because of entertainment, but because you have people who have nothing to live for. That's when people will rebel. Because think about it. Why does Tyrant Nation A, where men have families, how come that tyrant is allowed to be in charge, but Tyrant Nation B is the only time where nations are overthrown? Because the men have nothing to live for. They don't have a fucking family. They have nothing. Look at the people who are communists. When do they start to rebel? Well, that's a whole other discussion for later. The point is, there's different triggers for different groups. It's not because of entertainment. By all means, if it was just because of entertainment, then surely you could just easily drop a football stadium in the middle of Africa and have people ignore the conditions for the men without families. But even look at China, people lying down flat, even though that they have entertainment, they have things to keep them subdued. And yet, why is it that they weren't subdued? How come they're lying down flat? Because it's gone to a point where the discomfort and disruption needs to have some disorder happen in order to change the status quo from what they don't like. It's quite that simple. Anyway, so I'm going to end this video just ranting and pointing out examples throughout modern history and throughout history in general, really, of just societies that are not just on the basis of bread and circuses. By all means, I do believe many of these politicians wouldn't be in office if things were less comfortable, not in terms of entertainment and food, but in terms of being able to have a family. And I'm talking about the men, of course, because the men, like I said, just rebel when there is no comfort. While the women, again, just stress this point, men rebel where there's no comfort. Women rebel in times of comfort. But yeah, I'm going to end this here.